So we are back, and we were a few days away from Academy Awards nominations. I don't
looking a little iffy since for a few people because of stuff.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Whatever. I'm talking about James Franco.
Yeah,
the thing on the bomb dropped on him in a very precarious moment before the final date had come and gone.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of people had already voted, but there was 1 or 2 days there where people could make a decision about what they felt about that James Franco situation.
I don't think it'll affect it,
but I don't know. Yeah, maybe not. But then again, it's not like James Franco was going to win an Oscar for that role anyway.
No.
That's the weird thing, you know. A nomination, not a nomination, I don't know, whatever. But he was never going to win an Oscar for that.
What I'm curious about is to see, there are films that are sort of indie hits and culty hits, and which are sometimes popular hits but not critical hits, or vice versa. There are always films that are a little bit on the bubble, and you always, there's usually there are always films that get nominated for director but not picture, and vice versa. And that's what I'm curious about. I mean, we know Dunkirk's going to get a load of stuff, and Shape of Water is going to get a load, and 3 Billboards will get a load. I'm curious. Will Get Out get nominated for Best Picture? Guaranteed Best Screenplay.
Well, it's interesting that the Lady Birds, the Get Outs,
the Lady Bird is going to be interesting.
The Florida projects,
are floating. They're floating.
They don't live in the space.
I would even go so far as to say Florida Project may get nominated for nothing other than supporting actor. I could see Willem Dafoe. But Lady Bird, good question. I think it guaranteed it's going to get nominated for picture. But will they give Greta Gerwig Best Director?
Yeah, I see that one the other way around.
Because directors nominate directors.
Yeah.
Still an old boys club.
Yeah.
Are those old men going to look at that and go?
And she's a first timer, and that's a hard thing to do up. Then again, on the other hand, Jordan Peele, first timer. It's a tough one for those guys to give up.
Get Out kind of has run the table on screenplay awards.
Yeah.
And it's made a ton
including LAFCA. That's what we gave him.
Yeah. You gave it to Jordan Peele, and so the screenplay nomination there is guaranteed. I think he's a long shot for director, but I think it stands at a field of 10. I think Best Picture is a good shot.
Yeah, that's the one good thing about that field of 10.
Yeah.
Is that there's a big, gigantic, all kinds of little things can get in there. But that's pretty much all that happens. You got the nomination, feel good.
I've done some interesting research into the field of 10, and I'll save that for like a future blog post or something. But it's very interesting because we've had a field of 10 now for quite a few years, and they did it once before back in the 30s, right? And excuse me, both times. There's an interesting dynamic that enters, which is that the film that tends to win the most awards is not the film that wins Best Picture. And that's a dynamic that very rarely happens, but it happens constantly when you have 10 nominees, whether it's in the 30s or now. And I'm not sure how to explain it, but it's interesting.
It might have something to do with the way that voting situation is sort of broken up, and
might be
with committee, some committee, maybe something.
Gravity, tons of awards, didn't win Best Picture, got the most awards. Mad Max got most awards, didn't win Best Picture. La La Land won the most awards, didn't win Best Picture.
Kinda.
Kinda. So it's in all these cases, it's interesting is the films that's winning the most awards not winning Best Picture, and that's strictly a phenomenon of 10 nominees. But what I find interesting about 10 nominees, and I'm still not sure I'm totally sold on the idea, but is that we used to always wonder with the 5 nominees, I wonder what the next 5 were. Well, now we know.
Now we know, yeah. And we know that they wouldn't have had a shot in hell winning.
It's true.
Yeah, so but it is an interesting thing. It makes the show more interesting, and what it does do is that second 5.
Yeah.
Everybody else that's involved in that second 5,
yes.
Because that second 5 really doesn't have a shot at Best Picture.
No.
But everybody else involved in that second 5 it might pick off something.
Very true.
So you just never know what you'll see, and it makes for a more interesting show, and it makes for more interesting possibilities.
Yeah.
To take the stage up there, but we shall see. We shall see, man. Yeah.
Well, I've got a bunch of Asian-themed stuff to talk about right at the top. It's kind of accumulated, and it's worth discussing. Andy Lau. I
Mm,
love Andy Lau. I
yeah.
didn't used to love Andy Lau. Andy Lau back in the '80s, late '80s ish, was this really good-looking Hong Kong actor who he was wooden.
Mm.
He was just a chunk of clay, and he's a good face, and he'd give these. I mean, I was in Hong Kong once when one of his concerts was being, because it's obligatory when you're an actor in Hong Kong, you
Yeah.
also have to be a pop star.
Yeah.
Got to do both. That's what it means to be a hyphenate. And one of his concerts was being televised, and there he is in like this velvet suit and women draped around his about his feet, very dramatic, but not a great singer either. So I was never a huge Andy Lau fan. I was like, okay, so I get it. You're a pretty face and you can sort of sing and whatever. And then, man, he turned.
Mm.
And it may have been Infernal Affairs. I can't remember where it was, but somehow he turned and he became a real actor. And
Yeah.
he has just enthralled me ever since. And the crazy thing is, the guy he's got to be like 85 years old now.
Yeah,
and he look no, he's 50s.
50 something. But for one thing, this is one of the things that happens. I've noticed.
Just
Happens
doesn't
to
age.
you get older. For one thing, when the looks go away,
Yeah,
Matthew McConaughey,
yeah,
and I know people. Oh man, no, look. Yeah, I remember Matthew McConaughey when he was actually good looking.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's a perfectly handsome man. But when you literally can't count on that anymore, Brad Pitt.
Yep.
I know all these guys when all they had to do was walk into the room and they're good to go, whether they could act or not, and some of them couldn't.
Yep.
But when that goes away, man, you better have some skills.
Well, he's got them. We got 3 Andy Lau movies. 3 freaking Andy Lau movies. Herman Yao, who directed Ip Man, The Legend is Born, and a lot of other great movies, directs Andy Lau in Shockwave, which is just, great action, and Andy Lau, just that timeless face of his. And it's basically it's kind of like a SWAT movie, except it's not SWAT, it's the Explosive Ordnance Disposal Team, right? So it's like Hurt Locker meets SWAT in a Hong Kong cop film.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. And he wears the suit, and they got the bombs, and everything is ticking, the hostage situation. It's not a great concept for I shouldn't say great. It's not unique, but it's fun. And Yao directs the hell out of it, and Andy's great, and you're into it. So that comes to us from Cinedigm. That is Shockwave on Blu-ray and DVD combo. We also have The Adventurers, which is really interesting. It's Andy. Look at the cover here. It's basically the John Woo killer pose.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
But with the guns. But it's Andy Lau and Jean Reno. And I thought, well, that's an interesting pairing. And it totally works. Jean Reno, he just brings the heavy like he always does. This is from Welgo, and it is Andy Lau plays a legendary thief. Shu Kei plays his girlfriend. And they're planning this crazy heist, and Jean Reno is the gutsy French cop who's chasing him around the world. It's actually really, really fun. That's also a Blu-ray and DVD combo set. And then lastly is Andy Lau and Donnie Yen. Now Andy Lau only appears in this. It's primarily a Donnie Yen movie. It's called Chasing the Dragon. And Andy Lau makes just an appearance, but they plaster him all over the packaging. And Donnie Yen kind of kills this. It's the true story of Crippled Ho, who is a 1963 era very famous Hong Kong drug lord. And it's quite a story. Andy Lau plays cop. Only this time he's a dirty cop, so you get it's a little bit like the French film Mayreen, which is a great gangster saga. Scarface, there's a lot of Scarface here, has a lot of Tony Montana feel, and I am just thrilled at what a great actor Donnie Yen has become. Donnie is it's funny, he was the second guy in a lot of those Jet Li movies from that era. He was the other guy. He occasionally got a starring role like Iron Monkey. But back in the 90s, the early 90s, it was looking like, well, this is Jackie Chan and Jet Li are going to be the stars, and Donnie's just going to kind of fade away with the rest of these guys. And you know what? Jet doesn't make movies anymore. Jackie makes movies, but he's old.
Yeah.
And Donnie Yen is in his prime.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. And he's the same age.
He's still lean.
He's super lean.
He never was as physical as Jet and Jackie. Jackie falling down, Jet, trying to be,
Yeah.
Donnie was contained.
Yeah.
So he didn't jack himself all up as much as they did.
Well,
and he looks the same fighting now as he looked when he was fighting when he was 25.
Absolutely. It's amazing. Great genes. I've interviewed Donnie a couple of times, did a piece on him for the LA Times. Gosh, must have been like 18 years ago, 15 years ago. But he, his mom is one of the most legendary wushu instructors in history.
I did not know. Well,
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
did not know that.
So-
I did not know this. Like, it's surprising that I didn't know it.
Donnie Yen kind of lives in the shadow of his mom in the world of wushu. As a movie star, everybody's like, "Oh, Donnie Yen," and then you get into wushu, and they're like, "Oh, really? That's your mom? Wow, love your mom. Can you get your mom's autograph for me?"
Can your mom teach me how to throw a
Yeah,
punch?
but he learned from his mom. Pretty great, pretty great.
Love it.
So those are the Andy Lau movies. Here's what else we got. We got Wolf Warrior 2, which is like the most successful film in the history of China. They kind of finally figured out how to make these nationalistic propaganda films not bad.
Yeah.
Wolf Warrior is just crazy, hyper patriotic, Chinese nationalistic, just badass action. Directed by Wu Jing, who's one of their top action directors right now. It is, of course, a sequel to the 2015 Wolf Warrior, which was a hit, but not as big as this one. This thing's just been packing them in all over China. Is it really that good? It's fine. It's not, I mean, it's a little bit crazy. The action is really over the top. It's basically just people with guns shooting for about 2 hours straight. It's just nonstop guns and explosions is all it is. But it's well done. It's very, very well done, and it's got Frank Grillo in it. So you got a guy who's something of a profile in Hollywood.
Yeah.
People might remember him from Captain America: Civil War. Anyway, so Wolf Warrior 2 on Blu-ray and DVD combo set from Well-Go is perfectly fine. I again, they're better Hollywood movies, but not as far as the Chinese are concerned. And then we also have God of War, which is pretty impressive. Vincent Zhao, whose claim to fame is that he also did a few things in the 90s, and he briefly replaced Jet Li in the Once Upon a Time in America series. Vincent Zhao stars in this. This is just kind of straight up Chinese period film. Takes place in the 16th century, and he's Sammo Hung is kind of this Sammo's this military. He did all the action choreography here. Sammo is this kind of big military leader. Vincent Zhao is his kind of first in command, and they've got to go after these pirates. And it's pretty thin in terms of story, but it's heavy on the action. And it's based on a true story. Directed by Gordon Chan, who's a veteran. It's in that spot. It could be a little funnier. It could be a little more enjoyable, but it plays it pretty heavy, and that's okay. Gao Zixi does The Game Changer, which is out on a Blu-ray, not a combo set, just strictly a Blu-ray, which is kind of a hipster gangster movie. Again, Chinese film, Mandarin language. It's middling. This is not one of the top tier films, but it's it's got some good action. It's nicely photographed. It's a gangster film.
Yeah,
doesn't really reinvent the genre. Jackie Chan presents, which means he had nothing to do with it other than putting his name onto it. Reset, which is a kind of a science fiction biotech thriller that really stretches credibility. But there's a little time travel thing, and it doesn't. None of it makes much sense, but it's nicely shot, and Jackie threw his name on it. The director just goes by the name Chang, trying to be all hip and Almodovar-y. It's called Reset. It's it's fairly routine, but it's not great, not bad. Collection 2 of the TV series Garo, which is Japanese, and this comes to us from Kraken Releasing. This is sort of in that live action anime zone. It has very much an anime feel to it. The story, the world that it inhabits, the special effects, it all feels very fantastical, as though this would probably be better as anime. And it might be, but There's the whole thing like Garo is the name they give to this special armor, and it's mystical armor and the
Yeah.
whole thing. You kind of, if you haven't seen the collection one, you're not going to know what's going on. You really need to have gotten the first collection, but as a continuing story, it's pretty good. And then on DVD, not on Blu-ray, we have a few other things. One is Lord, Legend of Ravaging Dynasties. This is a kind of straight up wuxia thing. It's okay. It doesn't really make sense. There's CGI in here that I thought was really bad, and I wish they'd kind of not do so much CGI in Hong Kong and Chinese films these days. But it's I don't, it's I don't know.
Yeah.
The action's fine. Special effects are poor. The plot is iffy. Tokyo Idols is funny. Uh, it probably doesn't. It shouldn't be funny, but this is a documentary about the pop idol phenomenon in Japan, which is so unlike anything else in the world, and it's just purely a unique one of those things that just exists only in Japan, and the rest of the world just looks at them and just says, "What is going on your island?" There are just certain aspects of Japanese culture that just don't travel, but the world is fascinated by them, and this is one of them. And the internet has made this it's just made it completely viral. So
Yeah.
anyway, director is Kyoko Miyake, and it gives you a really interesting insight into this particular industry in Japan, and it is in fact an industry. It's quite interesting, and it's worth taking a look at. So Tokyo Idols, really fascinating look at a particular a uniquely Japanese phenomenon. And then we get to the last two, which are both really really terrific. This first one is a Thai film that was at Toronto and Locarno and a bunch of festivals. It's a Thai film it's called By the Time It Gets Dark. And the director is, here I go with my Thai names again. We just call him Joe, right?
Joe.
Weirasul Achapitapong, or
Yeah.
however you pronounce it. We just call him Joe.
He's Uncle Bunyi.
Well, this isn't that director. This
This
is
is a different.
this is
This
a
is
different director.
okay,
This is Anocha, but it's almost as bad. I just want to. It's like, why don't I just call you something else like
yeah,
Joe?
yeah.
Anocha Suwicha Kornpong. Anocha Suwicha Kornpong.
Yeah, well.
I'm sorry, I'm completely destroying that. Anyway, this is the second film from Switch Kornpong, and it is a wonderful tapestry of interlocking stories, all set against the backdrop of the 1976 massacre of student demonstrators in Bangkok, and it's a beautiful recreation of the period, and it's some really great acting here. It's a very very sharp script. Powerful movie, and a lot of stuff packed into just 105 minutes. It's really really worth checking out. I'm sorry it's not on Blu-ray, but it is called By the Time It Gets Dark, and that is from Kim Stim, and it's really really worth checking out. And then my favorite of the whole lot is Soul on a String from Zhang Yang. This was also at Toronto, and this is from Film Movement. I am a huge fan of Zhang Yang. I wish this was also on Blu-ray, but I guess there isn't necessarily the demand for it. Anyway, Zhang Yang I've actually interviewed on a few occasions. Fascinating guy. Kind of comes from the sixth generation, but he's not of the sixth generation. He's just from the same period as the sixth generation. Has always been very, very independent and paved his own way. Really interesting director and fascinating guy to talk to. In any case, Soul on a String takes place in the in the Himalayas and Tibet, and deals with a this kind of itinerant. He's not a holy man. He's just he's kind of a mysterious wanderer. We can call him a mountain man. And there's this kind of I don't want to call it. I don't want to say this is like an Indiana Jones movie because it's not. But there is a mystical stone, and it has to be returned to this giant Buddha somewhere in the mountain. Anyway, it is, and it becomes both a literal journey and a spiritual journey, and it's really mystical and it's really interesting. It's got a lot of provocative ideas in it, and a lot of symbolism that's not overly heavy, which is nice. And then you get a great short film on this as well, from Lebanon, called "The Rifle, the Jackal, the Wolf, and the Boy." So this is really terrific. Soul on a String just begs for a high def treatment, but nonetheless, it is a really interesting film from director Zhang Yang, and highly recommended. So that is our collection of really cool Asian films this week.
Outstanding. Actually, some good stuff in there.
Very good
For
stuff.
folks that started digging too. Can I knock off a few of these
let's
new
jump.
new
Do it.
releases?
New releases.
One of them being Mark Felt. Mark Felt, played by Liam Neeson in this film, with Diane Lane playing his wife. Mark Felt, of course, being ultimately revealed after 30+ years as Deep Throat.
Kind of ruins All the President's Men now.
Yeah, you know.
Do I watch All the President's Men now and just imagine Liam Neeson in the shadows? Is that what I'm supposed to do?
2005, I think he was 90. He was over 90 years old. Mark Felt. When he revealed himself to have been Deep Throat all those years ago. This movie was supposed to be among the movies that we were talking about this year during awards season.
Yeah.
Peter Landesman directed the film. Yeah, he was a journalist, I think New York Times, maybe Washington Post journalist who did this. You know, this movie, as a little bit of a history lesson, fine.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sure that I really give a damn about what was going on in the in the bowels of Mark Felt's life.
Yeah.
The fact that he was who he was, and why he deigned to do what he did, that's interesting, and that's in this movie.
Yeah.
But we get way behind the scenes of his life too. His wife, played by Diane Lane, was a bit of an alcoholic. His daughter, who was involved in the anti-war movement and sort of disappeared for a while. All, relatively speaking, interesting. But just the stuff of a human life, and I don't know. I guess that's why we're not talking about it right now. I know this. Liam Neeson is probably thinking to himself, you know what? I'm never going to play anything but that guy in Taken ever again. Because every time I try to play something else, it sort of tanks.
Liam Neeson's an action film star.
Yeah.
He's an action star at an age when you're not supposed to become an action star.
Yeah.
Somehow that happened for him.
Clocking, if not over 70.
Yeah.
Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
This is okay. Special features include some extended and deleted scenes in the commentary by the director, Mark Felt. Goodbye, Christopher Robin, which was another lovely little movie that I think we thought we might have been talking about about now.
Well, because these movies tend to make the Oscar round, right? If you think about Finding Neverland, right, the story of Barry and Peter Pan. And of course, every time somebody does a big British biopic about the life of an author, we go, oh, that's gonna be a sure thing, like Iris, right? I mean, there's a ton of them. And we probably thought, oh my goodness, yeah, sure, why not? A.A. Milne and
there's a little bit of something
Winnie the
going on
Pooh.
there,
and all the cry. Yeah, I think we really thought, and it is a good story, but it just didn't.
It's not that kind of. And another Margot Robbie film. Margot Robbie playing. She was
That's
so
part
good
of
in
the
this,
problem.
by the way.
Did you like her in this?
I thought she was okay in this.
Yes.
I didn't like her. His wife had some issues.
Yes,
AA's wife had some issues. Around there, and of course he was a World War I veteran.
Yes,
I think your dad was a World War I veteran.
Yes, he was.
That's so interesting.
Yeah,
and was suffering from what they didn't call post-traumatic stress back then.
Yeah,
and the Winnie the Pooh thing was away from the work that Anyway, interesting commentary by the director here and a few other people, and some behind-the-scenes stuff. And I still think it's a movie that people ought to pick up and watch. I do.
It is worth watching. Domhnall Gleeson is a very, very good actor, and I think he can do better than that, but he's become really interesting. He is, of course, Brendan Gleeson's son.
Yeah.
And he hams it up in the new Star Wars film in a really terrible way.
It's not his fault, though. They made him do it.
I know. He just hams it up. But, Ex Machina and, I mean, so many. He was in like 5 movies a few years ago that were all Oscar contenders. So he's really, really good. And Brendan Gleeson, by the way, have you seen Paddington 2?
Yes,
I took my daughter to see Paddington 2.
So good.
Brendan Gleeson is so damn funny in that movie. If you haven't seen it, you got to see Paddington 2. Brendan Gleeson plays the cook in prison where Paddington winds up, and he's the feared cook. Everyone fears him, and he's so funny. It just had me in tears. I was laughing so hard.
This is fantastic, man. Happy Death Day. I got to tell you, from the producer, this is those Blumhouse guys over there who do all that stuff.
This was the trailer made this.
Because for one thing, it's effectively Scream.
Yeah.
Okay,
Of course it is.
For those of us who are over 12, all right, they made this
But
movie
everyone
in the
went to
90s
see it because of the trailer.
because
The trailer freaked them out.
it is a
It's a
neat
clever, it's a
concept.
very
It's
clever
very
trailer.
clever thing. A young woman who has to, she keeps getting killed and repeating the thing. It's Groundhog Day meets Scream.
Yeah.
It's what it is, right?
Yeah.
You watch Groundhog's Day, you watch Scream, you
Yeah.
squeeze them together, you get this movie.
Well, and I have to say this: the marketing on this was superb, and it was really clever, and it was really smart, and the movie's fine. However, the better movie is The Final Girls,
Yeah.
which is genius, but which was not picked up by a major distributor, which was not a Blumhouse movie, which didn't really have a lot of juice behind it. Kind of went into theaters for a moment, then went to DVD, and then vanished.
Yeah.
And yet, it's a better movie. It's so smart. So,
It is.
Happy Death Day, fine, have a good time with it. But The Final Girls, definitely check that out.
The one thing this DVD has to offer is an alternate ending.
Yeah.
That's always fun. The Snowman, this Michael Fassbender film. Look, this didn't work for me, but it's sort of like the nature of these things are not working for me so much. There's another serial killer film. This guy, long history of these sort of serial killing things. The first big snow, and they find the snowman at the car. And it's a sort of bloody thing. He has this sort of like young female detective who's coming in. She's brilliant. She's got to help him figure out who's doing this stuff. I thought it would be better because the guy who directed it, Thomas Alfredson, directed "Let the Right One In," that little vampire, but that version of the
and should have been better.
It should have been better. Anyway, a few bonus features on this, but not. I thought there was a director's commentary, but no, there's not. All right, anyway, whatever. The Snowman.
Got a few DVDs here. Kind of, I don't want to say throwaway films because they're not throwaway, but they slide under the radar and they're worth making a mention of on a few important points. One is a thriller called Jawbone, which has Ian McShane and Ray Winstone in it, and that's enough for me. Ian McShane and Ray Winstone both just bring the heavy so beautifully.
That's that boxing movie, right?
Yeah, it's a boxing movie. It didn't really, Lionsgate did not do anything with this here theatrically, and I'm a little bit surprised because I thought this could have gotten some theater juice, but you gotta work a little bit to promote it. Anyway, Johnny Harris plays Jimmy McCabe, who's a prize fighter who was great when he was younger, and now he's kind of trying to do the Rocky thing, and it's got a lot to say. It's not anything that hasn't already been said in movies like Rocky and its 10,000 sequels. But Ian McShane and Ray Winstone are just great in it, and more so than Johnny Harris, and that's what makes it worth checking out. So it's probably a good rental.
Yeah.
The so-called quote unquote faith-based genre is making strides. I've been very critical.
They're getting better.
They're getting better.
Because they figured something out.
Yeah.
They figured out to be subtle.
Well, it's what Charles and I mentioned this on the radio. Charles was the one who really kind of summed it up, which is drama is about asking questions, and faith-based movies tend to be about giving you answers.
The answers, yes.
So they're inherently not very dramatic. People go to them knowing and expecting that they will validate a particular point of view, which is sort of anti-dramatic. So what they're doing is they're starting to actually switch their stories up a little bit. And this one is called Extraordinary. It's a true story. Kirk Cameron is in it along with, not a substantial part, but he's in it along with Leland Klassen, Sherry Rigby, Karen Abercrombie. These people will mean a little something to you if you've seen some of these movies in the past. Anyway, it's basically the true story of David Horton, who's kind of a famous super marathoner. He was a college professor and a super marathoner. And his marriage and how the strife that his running introduced into his marriage and some health problems, and then sort of how faith leads him to want to make one last great race.
Because he was he was a runner, but it was inspirational to lots of people.
Yes, and the
which is all true, by the way.
It's all true.
Yeah.
And the reason this works and transcends all of that sort of faith-based genre stuff is because it does get into issues in the marriage, and the acting is good. So Extraordinary, I'm going to say, is another step forward for this woe-begotten genre. The last one here just makes me want to cry. It's called A Dog and Pony Show. And I know. A Dog and Pony Show. This is one of those family comedies. and you know just from the name of it. It's really really silly. It means to be heartwarming. The thing that's heartbreaking about this is that it stars Mira Sorvino and Ralph Macchio. Um, Come on, Tim, look at that picture. I
Yeah.
mean, that's Mira Sorvino. She's won an Academy Award,
Yeah.
and they put her name right in the middle.
You know,
Academy Award winner.
she should slap the crap out of a Harvey Weinstein for that.
That's where I was going to go
Yeah.
with this,
Because that's why. That's the problem of Harvey Weinstein right there.
This
That's what he did to Mira Sorvino.
Please, people, please, Mira Sorvino deserves
Yeah.
a better career.
Yeah.
She got screwed by Harvey. Her dad rightfully threatened to kill Harvey recently, which
yeah.
I thought, good for you, good on you,
Well,
Dad.
he's an old Italian. You don't want to mess with Paul
Do
Sorvino.
not mess with
Ralph
Paul Sorvino.
Macchio, on the other hand, that's probably the right movie.
Yeah, it's probably the right Ralph for sure. Look, Ralph had a good run. I mean, you know.
I'm sorry. Why am I messing with Ralph? He's never done anything.
Karate Kid and Crossroads, and that
There
was
you go,
kind of
that's
it.
fine.
Ralph Macchio is like 75 years old, and he still has the face of a 12-year-old.
That's
I don't know
fine.
how he does it.
That's it.
Anyway, Ralph Macchio's fine. He's not going to hurt. But Mira Sorvino is an amazing actress, an incredible talent. She deserves better than this. So please, people, give her some good jobs. Make the evils of Harvey Weinstein right.
Yeah.
Please fix that problem. Shouldn't be doing a dog
Correct
and
all of
pony
that
show.
foolishness. Inspired by true events. It always worries me when that's above the top. Anyway, thank you for your service. From the well, it says from the writer of American Sniper. What it means, of course, is from the writer of the screenplay. The adapter
correct,
of the
not the
screenplay.
book.
Yeah, because that guy's dead. In any case, this is a well-intentioned film about soldiers coming back from Iran trying to reintegrate into their families, reintegrate into society, et cetera, et cetera. It's a movie. It's a funny thing. You and I are, of course, old enough to have been of a certain age when all of the Vietnam movies and post-Vietnam movies were happening, right? So those movies started so a few of them actually came at tracks and whatnot while the war was still going on. But those movies started in earnest about 1978. Deer Hunter, Coming Home. All of the you work your way right on up through the 80s. You get your Gardens of Stones, you get your Platoons, you get your all that kind of stuff. So each time we have one of these great wars, there will be a cache of movies that come during and not long after. Even after the first Gulf War, I think we got Jarhead out of the first Gulf War, from the early 90s. Jarhead was about that war, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there were a few. I don't know, man. This time around, these movies, I don't know. They're not. All of those movies that I'm talking about from before were movies that resonated deeply in my life. Deer Hunter is a movie that I was going off to. I think what's Deer Hunter, about 70, 78, 79?
Deer Hunter 78.
78. So the very next year, I went off to the Air Force, to the military. And that movie was a movie that we were all thinking about and talking about and engaged in. And then, of course, all of those movies. It's not happening this time. These movies do not resonate either with me or I guess with the youth the way they did before. But they should. There's no reason why this movie shouldn't move me. But I don't know, dude. They just don't.
They don't move me either.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a way of doing it, but you know what? You got to pick your spots, and I think we've been inundated. We need to breathe a little bit.
They
It's like
all
Westerns.
feel like propaganda in one way or the other. I had to talk about 12 Strong a week or so ago when I was on earlier, and they're all propaganda in one way or the other. It's not jingoistic, nationalistic propaganda, or sort of lefty, socialistic propaganda, one way or the other.
You need some distance. You need some distance, and it's rare that you get something like, for example, Best Years of Our Lives, which was 1946.
Yeah.
That's 1 year after the end of World War II. And William Wyler is looking back with a surprising degree of reflection on it. And that just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. This is kind of funny. The Cook-Off. This is just one of these big, wacky, funny movies that is a takeoff on our current trend in cooking shows.
Yeah.
There's a big, gigantic cooking contest that's going on. You have all of these sort of wacky contestants engaged in a whole bunch of foolishness. It's funny.
It's silly nonsense. And, these people should be in a better movie, all of them. But
look, Melissa McCarthy is at the center of this movie.
Yeah.
This did not get a theatrical release.
No, it did
I
not.
think this. I think we're done with that now.
Yes, we are.
Which I like her, but I'm sorry, she was always a television personality. Always, she's Roseanne for her generation. Why she got to make 15 major motion pictures?
I really badly want Diedrich Bader to start doing real movies again, because he's just so talented and so funny, and he just never really gets that breakthrough part. Office Space, he steals Office Space with his little off-screen things. They're showing the breast exam again. I mean, come on, man. It's just funny stuff. 9/11 is this was okay. So on this last year on 9/11, on the weekend of 9/11, I was on radio, and there were probably 4 movies that had 9/11 themes. Documentary, it was a little independent. And the only one they did not screen for us was 9/11, which I have in my hand here. The Charlie Sheen film, which is not terrible. I don't know why they didn't screen it for us. I think they were afraid with Charlie in it and whatnot. It's not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. It just doesn't quite play its story the way that it should. But the idea is 5 people get trapped inside an elevator in the World Trade Center when the plane strikes the building, and it's one of those claustrophobic lifeboat type things. It's exactly Hitchcock's Lifeboat. It is Lifeboat on 9/11 in an elevator. That's exactly what it is. And but you know what? They play it well. Gina Gershon and Whoopi Goldberg and Luis Guzman. These are all really good actors. And again, with those actors, it should be a better movie. Martin Guigui, I think is how you pronounce it, co-wrote it and directed it. Not quite up to snuff here, but I mean, you could do worse. It's not. If you're curious, you will not be entirely disappointed. And then my entire high school is sinking. My entire high school sinking into the sea. Is a strange animated thing, which I'm kind of not quite. It's more. It's trying too hard to be a cult film, I think, is maybe the best way to put it. This also did not get a theatrical release. I'm not sure it necessarily deserved it. It would have been a really, really tough film to handle. You kind of got to put it out there and let people find it. Some very, very good voice work on here. Jason Schwartzman, Susan Sarandon, Reggie Watts, Maya Rudolph, and Lena Dunham. It's what was the Charlie Kaufman thing a few years ago?
Which one are we talking about?
The animated, the claymation.
Oh, with it's actually rotoscope thing. What was the name of that thing?
No, with where they swap out the heads of the.
Oh.
No, well, never mind. Look it up. It was the Charlie Kaufman animated Anomalisa.
Anomalisa, yes.
Anomalisa. Thank you. So
with the sex scene in it.
Yeah. So this is not Anomalisa. This is all hand drawn. However, I feel a similar emotional distance to this, and because it's dealing with too much. It's sort of trying to wrap itself philosophically around too many sort of life issues. And when you immerse an animated film in that stuff, the animation seems to sort of I can't focus on the animation anymore. I'm getting very angsty about everything else that's going on. So and basically, it's a high school backdrop, but it doesn't. It's missing something. So anyway, my entire high school sinking into the sea. Very strange, but beautifully animated film. A little bit too dense in its ideas. It's trying too hard to do too much, I think. But anyway, Dash Shaw, who wrote and directed it, does an audio commentary that's quite good. It also has short films by Dash Shaw. So it's a little bit more interesting to get to dig into the making of it and the ideas behind it, and that's interesting. I'm not going to completely, but it's just too much for me. It's too dense.
I really like this little movie, Bitch. Right, Jason. I know Jason Ritter, Jamie King, and the writer director who is also the star of the film, Marina Polka. Right.
Yeah.
This is the plot of this movie. Right. It's this little family. Marina Polka is playing the mother, and she has these kids. They're completely unruly. She's married to Jason Ritter. He's this guy who's fairly inept, but trying to do the right thing. And he's really good in this movie. He's funny, but it's all kind of tragic. There's this dog that's barking, and what happens is the mom has this psychic break where she deeply and truly believes becomes a vicious rabid dog. And she is, and it's really interesting, and there's a lot of sort of deep psychological commentary going on in this movie, yet it's still funny as heck. So I like it a lot for that reason alone. So this is one of those neat little indies that if you're just not paying attention, you would miss. But nowadays you can pick up, watch it on in a streaming situation or something like that. It's a really neat little movie.
I got two over here, which I like to put together because it looks like they're facing off.
All those covers, yeah.
Isn't that great?
Kill, yeah.
All right. So
Shotguns.
I'm going to explain what Tim's laughing at. So 68 Kill is Blu-ray and DVD combo set, and it's got Annalyn McCord holding a shotgun pointing to the right. And then I've got Bad Day for the Cut with I forget which actor this is, but he's holding double.
What's the other guy? Is that Niall, whatever his name is? Niall O'Neill or something.
He's holding a shotgun pointing the other
Susan
direction.
Lynch is in that film.
So if you put these two together, it looks like they're holding shotguns on each other.
It's fantastic.
I always enjoy getting covers that match that way. Anyway, 68 Kill is just a vengeful woman shoot 'em up cult film. It's designed to be a throwback to all that kind of feminist late 60s, early 70s. I spit on your graves kind of stuff. It's not much at all. But it's got a lot of fun action, and it's culty, and it's tongue in cheek, and it's having fun with it. Written and directed by Trent Haga.
What people will do for $68,000.
Yeah, I mean it's.
Listen to me, I'm talking crap. Like I wouldn't kill 3 or 4 people for $68,000.
Yeah, and then Bad Day for the Cut was a film that got a little bit of attention at Sundance last year.
I like that movie.
Why did it not catch fire?
Sundance is
it's going on right now.
And I was listening to some numbers about it. The numbers for Sundance are getting really bad, dude.
I know they are.
By the numbers, I mean the number of films that A, get picked up at all.
Yeah.
B, of the ones that get picked up that get any kind of significant distribution. Now we're down to about 5 or 6 films.
And the amount of money they make.
The amount of money they make, juxtaposed to how much money they've been overspending at Sundance. I'm sorry, I went off on a crazy ass tangent, but they've been overspending at Sundance. I didn't think I'd ever say that, but they have.
True.
Yeah,
it's very true. Well, anyway, it's a thriller, super violent, super bloody, and it's got a guy. His mother's murdered, and he goes out for vengeance to track down the killers in Belfast, Ireland. And it gets into that whole existential journey thing that you're out for vengeance, but what are you really out for? Well, it's a journey of self-discovery, and there's some pretty dark Irish humor in this as well. But I wish this had kind of caught on a little bit, but it didn't.
It's a really good performance. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, so that's Bad Day for the Cut. So Bad Day for the Cut, good film to discover. 68 Kill. It's trashy and fun and doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's nice to pass the time.
In the same world of 68 Kill, I've got MFA, and this is clever what they're doing here. MFA, Masters of Fine Arts, because the Francesca Eastwood, one of Clint Eastwood's younger daughters, is the lead in this. And with I think Francis, the redhead here. Anyway, whatever.
Oh yeah.
So MFA, also the title of this film, Mastering the Art of Revenge. So it's about this young art student that Eastwood is playing, who is raped. And she manages to find and slaughter fairly viciously her rapist. And in the process of doing that, creating some fairly interesting sort of Jackson Pollocky sort of art. If you think about that there, and it becomes fairly famous from that, and realizes that she can just keep killing dudes and making nice paintings.
There we go.
So it's one of, again, I spit on your grave, all that kind of stuff. What is cool about it is Francesca. Francesca Eastwood here is really kicking some ass. I've been watching her for a couple of years. Cliff. What's his name? Clifton
Clavin. Cliff Clavin on Cheers.
That's it. Is also in this film. So it's a neat little movie, neat little revenge film in a time when movies like this are probably apropos.
Killing of a Sacred Deer from Yorgos Lanthimos, the director of The Lobster. He reunites with Colin Farrell. and Nicole Kidman's in this as well. This didn't really catch fire like The Lobster did. The Lobster got a lot of attention, even though I think it's overrated. This whole people turning into animals thing was just
I
weird.
like that one, didn't like this one.
Yeah. What and I've been one of those people who was down on Lanthimos kind of from the beginning. I think he's just really pretentious and a little bit overrated, and he tries too hard to just be weird for weird's sake. And I kind of still feel the same way. I like Colin Farrell in this. I like that he's stretching and he's trying to play more character parts and diminish his looks and buries himself in that beard and the whole
Yeah.
thing. But it still feels just too weird. He and Nicole Kidman are a couple, and they've got a couple of kids, 12-year-old and 14-year-old. He's a heart surgeon, and then there's this character played by Barry Keoghan. Is that how you pronounce his name? Keoghan. This character played by Barry Keoghan, who insinuates himself into the family, and the story deals with what the aftermath of that. I won't get into giving anything away, but there's stuff that happens, and it takes you to typically weird and dark place. I don't. Why does this film not work?
I don't. For one thing, after having seen The Lobster, which I admit
Yeah.
I did enjoy and think that there was something interesting going on in that film thematically.
Yeah.
That's all revealed in this film. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm like, now I'm on to you.
See, that's what it
Yorgos,
is.
I'm on to you now.
Yeah.
And once I'm on to you, I'm on to you. You got to do a different thing. But you're just you have just so no, that one doesn't work for me.
He for some reason there I feel like there's a generation of directors who misunderstood what Bergman and all those guys in the 60s were doing. They thought that they were making, and this is maybe the best way to put this, all those directors in the 60s that just kind of exploded at that time, and everybody from Kurosawa to Bergman to Antonioni to the new wave directors to Buñuel, these guys were not going out there saying, I am going to tell people how to live, I'm going to tell them what's wrong with their lives. They were wrestling with their own lives and their own issues, and these movies are very, very personal. And I feel like Lanthimos and a lot of his generation don't get that. They sort of are consumed. They're a little preoccupied with their own ideas, and they think, I've got all the answers. And it's that answer question thing again, right? Like with faith-based films. If you're a director and you think you have all the answers and that's why you're making a movie is to tell me the answers, I don't want to see that movie.
No.
But if you are asking questions and you're making your movie to wrestle with these questions and you're just asking questions and the movie is part of your process, I can become part of that and I can connect to that. And
particularly if they live in a sort of real world anyway.
Yeah.
Ozu was another one,
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so a couple of real world.
We're into cult movies now.
Just Franco here. Oh my God, I love these movies. Two female spies with flowered panties, which is just look. If there was nothing but the title of the movie, I'd be okay. But this is an absolutely fantastic sort of 70s sort of thriller. It's about these women who get out of prison and they go to work for the U.S. government to find out about. It's just all what you end up with is a bunch of threesomes.
Yeah,
a bunch of kinky threesomes that happen for no
point.
reason whatsoever. This is fantastic. All kinds of wonderful special features here, including the composer of the film and Stephen Thrower and just all kinds of stuff. The other one, also Jess, Killer Barbies, which folks might remember Killer Barbies, which was actually a pretty big hit at the time, relatively speaking. In the genre of films where you have a whole bunch of teenagers and they go off into the woods, in this case off to a castle up on the top of a hill someplace, and there's this sort of nutty, sort of vampire-y sort of person up, and she's killing these young people and drinking their blood, so that she can maintain her youth. And what you end up with is just all of these girls sort of roaming around this castle in panties and t-shirts, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on in this movie, but this is fantastic. It was great at the time. Thank God. Jess Franco, by the way, Vampiros Lesbos, I think would be the big sort of Jess Franco film that a lot of people would know. This is pretty neat too in terms of special features, and these are all remastered, which I think is the most interesting thing about them. They're all remastered. This one has an English language soundtrack and a French soundtrack, as well as an audio commentary by historian Troy Haworth.
Even worse is The Devil's Honey, which is a Lucio Fulci film. This is from Severin. This is just gloriously bad. Uh, Look, there's no forget about the plot here. There's no plot. It really isn't. This is just Lucio Fulci, of course, was a giallo
Yeah.
guy, right? It's all kind of gore and whatnot, and that he's the godfather of all the rest of them in many respects. And This thing is it's just self-consciously filthy and horrible. You've got look. Let me just read. Let me just read from because I could never describe this as well as they do. Brett Halsey and Blanca Marcelat star in this insane S&M saga, complete with sodomy, torture, torrid romance, rampant nudity, and a jaw-dropping cavalcade of kink. There you go.
Yeah.
It's called The Devil's Honey. There's no better way to describe this. That's exactly what it is. It is a jaw-dropping cavalcade of kink. We also have The Fox with a Velvet Tail from Mondo Macabro. This is a Spanish-Italian film from 1971. I probably found this. This is a giallo film, and it's a bit of a murder mystery, and it takes place in southern France, but it's still a giallo film, and it's still a little nasty and trashy, and whatnot. Sexy and gory. It's sort of like if Hitchcock were untalented and didn't have a script, but he had a lot of people who are willing to do gore and sex, then this would be the movie, The Fox with a Velvet Tail. If that even makes sense. Anyway, looks really surprisingly good, to be honest. They did a 4K transfer from the negative, and for a kind of an exploitation movie, a Euro trash exploitation movie from 1971, that's a lot of work. And I'm sure the negative didn't look good, but man, they made it look great. So it's got all those garish colors from the era, and it's kind of a nice trashy throwback. So there's a lot of fun to watching it, even though it's not very good. The Fox with a Velvet Tail.
There is a bit of wackiness that is also sort of insightful in this perfectly insane Trauma film. Trauma's been around forever.
Yeah.
I remember interviewing those guys maybe 30 years ago or something like that. Anyway, this is called Lloyd Kaufman is The Thingy: Confessions of a Teenage Placenta. Yeah. And here's the wacky and yeah,
Lloyd.
placenta. So you're like this blob. It's this blob, a placenta with a face and eyes and a mouth, and it can sort of jungulate.
Yeah.
And what I love about it is that the physical thing in the film is a practical effect.
Yeah.
They would do that CGI mostly now, but it's a practical effect. It's just a blob of something. Some dude is under there. Some dude is under there. This is the neat thing about it, though, right? So the idea is that this woman has a baby. The baby is stillborn, but her afterbirth, the placenta, is imbued for some reason we do not know with life. She raises it. She raises it to be a teenager, a very sophisticated, intelligent, faithful a teenager with faith. He's like a kid who. Yet all of her friends are these drunks and junkies and alcoholics. Yet her placenta, her live teenage son placenta, is trying to talk all of these guys into being better people. That's a little bit nutty in a certain sort of way, and an idea. Let's just call it an idea. Nevertheless, should you go and see it? I don't know. Maybe not. Probably not.
So here's one that's a little bit more recent. This is a Marco Ferreri film called The Flesh from 1991. That's relatively recent. Now, Marco Ferreri is a legit director. I mean, he's a legit Italian director who's made some very, very fine films. This is not one of them. This is a little bit trashy. This is from Cult Epics, who only does really, really fun, trashy stuff. And it stars the very legit Sergio Castellitto, who is a great actor and a great director now. Has more or less become so since 1991. And it also stars an actress whose name you probably know more infamously, Francesca Dell'Era, who previously made a lot of Tinto Brass movies like Capriccio, and who's kind of a softcore queen. The idea here really splits the difference. It wants to be a legit film, but it's basically about a woman who has sort of sex powers and who hypnotizes him into being her sex slave, and then decides she's done with him, throws him away, but he's not ready to go so easily. So anyway, this is a Blu-ray DVD combo set. It's fun and silly and very, very Euro. It feels like it belongs to an earlier era than 1991, but in point of fact, it does not. Marco Ferreri, Made it in 1991. And then we also have All the Sins of Sodom and Vibration on the Joseph W. Sarno Retrospect series. This is a Blu-ray from Film Movement Classics. This splits the difference between cult and art, which is what Sarno did. Joseph Sarno is a really, really interesting figure, and primarily known as Joe Sarno.
Yeah.
He's interviewed here, and then there's a which is quite interesting, and there's a commentary as well by film historian and Peggy Stephan Sarno.
I used to love all those movies from back. Him, Henry Paris.
Yeah, they're all late '60s.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, and we could probably put Russ Meyer in there too.
Russ Meyer, yeah.
Russ Meyer would go in there as well. At least his early stuff, not the later stuff, like but things like Mudhoney.
Yeah.
Definitely belong to this kind of class, where people are making what are essentially sexploitation films. But yet they're making them with a sort of an artistic intent and with artistic technique.
Yeah.
And it elevates them and it makes them relevant in a really weird, artifactual way all these decades later.
Sometimes the actors were pretty good. You would get some Henry Paris, also known as Radley Mesker.
Yeah.
Which one was the stage name?
Paris was the stage name.
But sometimes when the acting was good, and then of course you'd have all the sort of kinky sexual dynamics going on. But they could be interesting.
So anyway, All the Sins of Sodom and Vibrations. Vibrations is particularly interesting. It gets into female repression, and obviously the Vibrations is not just in the Beach Boys good vibration sense, but there's actually a vibrator that has a very substantial role to play in the story. So anyway, Sarno is a really interesting figure, and I applaud Film Movement for releasing his stuff on Blu-ray as part of the Film Movement Classics. So we are going to continue to get Joseph Sarno releases. This is only the first in the Joseph W. Sarno Retrospect series. So more will come. Film Movement has plenty to release on the Sarno line.
Interesting stuff there. Want to pop over to the little TV?
Let's do some TV.
SWAT, the 1975 SWAT. The complete series. People forget that Robert Urich, Steve Forrest was the lead of the SWAT team, but people forget that Robert Urich was in this series before Dan Tanner, before Vegas, and all that kind of stuff. You got Robert Urich here, and I just think that it was really neat. This was one of the early ones that I really liked a lot. I love this series. It was set here. It was set here in L.A.
Yeah.
So back in the middle '70s, how did this play for you guys, for you actual LA guys?
It was. I was really into a lot of these shows at the time. This was kind of not my favorite one. It was like a better version of Adam 12.
I was going to say you had your one
Emergency.
Adam 12s and you had your emergencies, yeah.
Because every episode was kind of another crisis, right? It's like, okay, like the thing with Adam 12 is every episode they're going on regular calls. Every episode of Emergency was an emergency. Every episode of SWAT was SWAT team's got to go do it. We got a hostage situation. We got whatever it is. As opposed to something like The Rookies.
Yeah.
Right? Where the intimate lives of these characters were very different week in and week out. And it was much more about the characters and not some
not always
contrived
about
situation.
The crime moment.
Not always about the crime moment, yeah.
The SWAT, and of course, right now, well, there was that movie in the middle 2000s.
Yeah, the Colin Farrell.
Sam Jackson's Colin Farrell. Yeah. We just talked about him. Yeah. And right now, this is on television again.
Yeah.
This is a series again.
There it is.
So these 40 years hence.
Yeah.
And it's come back around. Man, intellectual properties are a hell of a thing.
They are.
They are. They never stop paying.
No.
Anyway, this is neat. This is the complete series. Some great old faces in here, including the team, the SWAT team. But the really great old faces are all the people who pop up in every episode of these things who you're going to be like, Ed Asner. Yep. You're going to, all these folks. I have so much fun with that kind of stuff in these series. And we have the complete second season of Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, which is something that has just never stopped fascinating me. I watch these all the time. They actually air on broadcast television, probably all over the country, but certainly here in L.A. on one of those little channels there. And again, you have this sort of really interesting time capsule of that period. This is the second season, so we're still in the 60s. We're still in the middle to late 60s.
Yep.
And the references and the people who pop up, people forget that Richard Nixon was on Rowan and Martin's. Sock It to Me.
Yeah,
that was Richard. Ed Sullivan was on this show. Mel Brooks and Johnny Carson and Sammy Davis Jr. and Kirk Douglas and then Bob. It's just all sorts of really interesting. It's a time capsule of all of that. But what fascinates me are those little segues when Rowan and Martin are standing there, and those little conversations they have, dude.
Such a sharp show.
So sharp. This show and funny. Anyway, 26 episodes of season 2. Here Comes the Judge, including some bonus features. Laughing, watchable, forever watchable, so far as I'm concerned.
A Town Called Panic, The Collection. A Town Called Panic is a stop motion, a very weird kind of a stop motion. It started as a movie in 2009. And was screened at Cannes, and it became a series, and it's a weird stop motion-y kind of what's the Seth Green show that I always forget the title of, the stop motion thing on TV that he does.
I do know the thing that you're talking about. Oh,
yeah,
for Christ's sake,
that stop motion thing. Anyway, everybody knows what I'm talking about. Robot, what's it? Robot monkey.
Robot chicken?
Robot chicken.
Robot
thank you.
chicken.
That's it.
What it is, yeah.
Robot monkey. So I'm getting senile. So Robot chicken. Yeah, it's a little bit like that, except French style, with an Indian and a cowboy, and all the rest of their very strange, deranged Toy Story type acolytes. What's cute on here is Christmas Panic. That's actually a very, very cute story, but the rest of the thing is a little bit uneven. I guess you have to have a really tweaked sense of humor to sort of get into this. It is again like Robot Chicken meets Toy Story with a little bit of a French spin, but it's out on Blu-ray from Shout Factory, courtesy of DigiGods, who does all the animation stuff. A Town Called Panic, The Collection, 20 episodes, including Christmas Panic and Back to School Panic. And then we also have Teen Titans, the complete first season. As everyone knows, I'm not a huge fan of the
teenage superheroes,
the teenage superheroes and baby Muppets and the Looney Tunes kids and let's make them younger and we'll be all cute about it. I'm not really into that. I'd rather see them as adults, fully powerful. Anyway, 13 episodes of Teen Titans, complete first season on Blu-ray. It is I guess modestly satisfying if you're enjoying the whole DC thing, but I'm a little bit over it.
Yeah. The complete second season of Victoria, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. For one thing, I have a crush on Jenna Coleman.
Right.
That notwithstanding, because I'm a Doctor Who guy.
I love The Crown.
Yeah.
But as a compliment to The Crown,
yes,
considering that this is Queen Elizabeth's great-grandmother,
yeah,
it's important.
Yes. These things go together in a very particular sort of way. And what I like about both of the series, despite the fact that they're set when they're set, is that they are so connected to contemporary society. So it's like you watch these series and it's like a through line. You can look back through these series and understand exactly what the hell is going on today.
Yeah.
I watched these series and I know why Brexit happened. If you watch these two series,
totally.
These two series explain why Brexit was inevitable. Brexit was inevitable. If you watch these two series, it has to do with that. Anyway, this is pretty good. A lot of bonus features on here too, including over 25 minutes of bonus video.
S'more Entertainment, who used to release a lot of stuff but doesn't do a whole lot anymore, comes out with some interesting stuff every once in a while. They still have some goods in their library or in their locker, and one of them is this television production of Camelot. With Richard Harris, who of course was in the movie Camelot, but this is the Lerner and Loewe Camelot, and part of what was staged as HBO theater for videotape in 1980, and so you get a little bit different take. Richard Harris played in the movie. It was 68?
Oh, yeah.
Something like that. It's late 60s. So Camelot, the movie, is, more than a decade and a half prior to this. So he's changed it up a little bit, and it's not the same as the movie. In some respects, it's better, but still, it's Lerner and Loewe's Camelot done for television as an early HBO production in the very early days of HBO in 1980. And I thought it was. I think it's really great. The songs are still terrific, and the cast is interesting. Meg Bussert, Richard Munns. I just don't think you can go wrong with Camelot. really one of the all-time
Yeah.
great musicals.
Yeah, 67. I just
67. There it is.
Right there.
Yeah.
Ray Donovan. Are you a Ray Donovan guy? I just never.
Gosh,
I
the
never
first
could.
the first season was interesting and it was promising,
Yeah.
and I thought this is going to go into some interesting places. And then the second season just seemed to kind of stall out a little bit.
It became obvious, Ray Donovan, this guy
Yeah.
goes around, fixer for the Hollywood, but his family and all that kind of stuff. But
I don't feel like they've taken it further, right? It brought it to a certain place in that first season, and there are some high stakes, and then it's just sort of more. It becomes like a grittier Rockford Files without the jokes.
Exactly, except that the Jim Rockford was a good guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Ray is a dubious guy in the first place. And
that's what I mean without the jokes.
Yeah,
he's not funny.
I have a hard time hanging my hat on him as my hero.
Yeah,
but Jim Rockford, he'll take it in the.
But you can make me interested. You can make me interested in him, invested in him, if you take him further, if you push him into moral dilemmas, if you force him into situations which they're not forcing him into. I kind of want them to. And they still have a chance to do it. I bet it's been on for 5 years.
Yeah, this is season 5.
They're obviously not gonna take any further chances with it.
A few special features. It's an interesting thing. If you're into it, you want to pick it up. But that's just all depends. There you go.
Yeah. We got a few from Acorn, and we're quick at the end of the show, so let me pound through these fairly quickly. Doc Martin, Series 8. Still a great show. This is on Blu-ray from Acorn TV. Doc Martin has been a great show from day one. Series 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you've seen any of them, they're fantastic. They're all great. Martin Clunes is just a terrific actor. Should be in features, but his bread and butter is British television, and good for him. He's killed it. So Doc Martin on Blu-ray, Series 8. Midsomer Murders. John Barnaby's First Cases box set, which is quite good. Midsomer Murders is just one of the all-time great mystery shows on British television, and this has about 12 mysteries on it. 15, actually. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 mysteries. It'll take you forever to watch them. This is the 21 hours worth of mysteries. It'll go on forever. So you can and they're all good. They're all great. So a lot of great guest stars too. Then we also have Rake, which stars the absolutely terrific Richard Roxburgh. This all takes place in the court system in Australia. This is absolutely terrific. Richard Roxburgh, great actor, keeps getting better. And then lastly, we have one that I had not seen before, which is Acceptable Risk, which is an Acorn TV original. And Acceptable Risk stars Elaine Cassidy, who was previously in The Paradise. A little bit Aaron Brockovich-y here, Irish character, takes place primarily in Montreal. Really quite interesting, kind of international thriller intrigue thing. It's called Acceptable Risk. And see it just for the great performance by Elaine Cassidy. She's absolutely terrific.
Yeah, I'll knock this one off really quick. The complete series, Girlfriends. When this series first aired back in 2000, first of all, it blows me away that this series first aired back in 2000.
Crazy,
it makes me dizzy. Right. Tracy Ross Ellis, who of course we know from Blackish now. This is a series about these 4 young black women living the lives that they were living, having a fabulous time, dating and doing this and doing that, and it's just this wonderful thing, which we hadn't seen on television before.
No.
A lot of people forget about that. That was a big ass deal.
It was
sexy and smart and funny and all of that. The thing that I love about the series, which was created by Maria Brock Akil, is that the executive producer, Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah.
Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah.
They came to Kelsey Grammer and said, "Hey, Kelsey, we got this series about these 4 black chicks. They're funny." Kelsey's like, "Oh, hell yeah. Let's do that." Anyway, it's a wonderful series that made a big difference in the lives of a lot of young black women over the course of that period. A lot of young black women grew up watching this series, reshaping what it meant to be in the same way that what was the one, Sex and the City?
Sure.
In the exact same way that Sex and the City did.
Kelsey Grammer, I'll say this right before we close out the show. Kelsey Grammer is a real pay it forward kind of guy.
Yeah.
Because he paid so many dues for so long, really fought so hard, took so much abuse for so long before he finally cracked through. He knows what it takes. And when people, came to him saying, help me realize my dreams, he was ready to do it. Here's my Kelsey Grammer story. People do not open car doors for strangers. Kelsey Grammer does.
I love it.
We were out in the middle of nowhere. I'm assuming his offices are probably somewhere there, and picking up food at Chipotle. Came out of Chipotle, and Kelsey Grammer, he and some guy had just parked right next to us, and he literally opened the door for my wife, the passenger side door for my wife. I thought, that is such an unbelievably class act. Normally a star would be like, oh, here, sunglasses, put down the hat down, don't see me. I just thought, that's amazing. This is a real class act. So I have a lot of love and respect for Kelsey Grammer.
Gentleman on the Scholar. Anyway, that's
all right.
it for
That's
me.
it. Done for the show. We'll see you guys next week.